Man, this whole time, bro, they made us fucking think Africa was such a poor country, bro. Such a place you wouldn't want to be at, bro. And speed is single-handedly changing my perspective on life. Like the music in Africa, the culture, everything, every single aspect.
So I'm speaking as somebody who grew up swallowing the same bullshit stories everybody else who was not African did, and finally watched them fall apart in real time. Because that's exactly what's happening right now. What IShowSpeed is doing in Africa is not just travel content. It's not just entertainment. It's not just a streamer having fun. It is exposure. It is exposure. For centuries, Western media worked overtime to make Africa look like one thing and one thing only: poor, broken, dangerous, backward, underdeveloped, starving, hopeless. No nuance, no humanity, no joy, no modern cities, no culture beyond suffering. Just the same tired images recycled over and over until people stopped questioning them. Those images were not accidental. They were literally useful. They were useful. Because when you brainwash and convince the world that a place is nothing but chaos, you don't have to respect it. You don't have to invest in it. You don't have to learn from it. You don't have to treat its people like equals. Now enter a young black kid from Cincinnati, Ohio with a phone, a camera, a crew, and a live stream. No script, no media filter, no permission. And suddenly the story cracks. He lands in South Africa, Ethiopia, Nigeria, Angola, Kenya, Rwanda. And what happens? Not what we were told would happen. He's welcomed, he's protected, he's fed, he's celebrated. Artists give him their work. Kids chant his name. Vendors hand him real food, real warmth, real generosity. City after city, border after border. Welcome home. And yeah, people will say, well, he's famous. Okay, then explain why that same fame did not protect him everywhere else. Because in parts of Europe and Asia, where he's just as known, he was met with racial slurs, monkey noises, bananas thrown at him. That did not come from nowhere. But on the African continent, he's treated like family. And that's why this matters more than people realize. Because his audience is young. Millions of kids who only knew Africa through disaster headlines and distorted history lessons and brainwashing and false narratives. Now they're watching a live stream that does not match the lie. They're watching joy, modern cities, music, style, food, love, pride, safety, community. They're watching respect. And when a 15 or 16-year-old black kid in America, or just any kid in America who's been told their whole life that Africa has no food, no water, or there's nothing there, they just live in stick huts, watches Speed eating local food, laughing, being embraced, something shifts. Maybe Africa isn't a struggle. Maybe Africa is not a warning. Maybe Africa is not a charity case. Maybe Africa is connection. Maybe Africa is opportunity. Maybe Africa is home. And that realization is dangerous, not to people, but to a narrative. A long-running story that kept Africans in the diaspora disconnected from the continent, disconnected from culture, disconnected from possibility, disconnected from each other. Once people see the truth, the old script stops working.
So IShowSpeed was in Africa, touring different African countries, and I read tons of comments and videos from Americans, African Americans and other Americans, and I just can't help but wonder why there is no history in their curriculum. Because an average African understands history of virtually every part of the world, every continent of the world. Sadly, it looks like Americans know little or nothing about Africa. And it's embarrassing to see that a lot of them were even apologizing, thinking that Africa was one just long stretch or path. They didn't know that there are developments in different parts of Africa. 54 countries in one continent. A country with over 1 billion population. So Africa is not just a dark place. Africa is not some sort of dark continent. Whatever you find in most of the developed cities and societies around the world, you'll find in Africa. You'll find in one part of Africa or the other. What IShowSpeed's visit to Africa did was to open the eyes and minds of Americans who were not exposed to their history and the history of the world. They know very little or nothing about most parts of Africa. IShowSpeed happens to be the cultural ambassador of the US to the rest of the world. And I think he deserves his flowers. And I think the US needs to actually call him in and give him a medal. I don't see that happening anytime though, but he has succeeded in opening the eyes of Americans that there's a lot and a lot of opportunities on the continent of Africa, a budding society that they can benefit from. Rather than throw shit and stones at Africans, they need to begin to rearrange and re-respect Africa again, because it's a continent with vast opportunities and potentials. IShowSpeed has succeeded in opening Africa to the rest of America and the rest of the world. Africa is not a dark continent. 54 countries with opportunities and potentials, very wealthy, with vast networks. I think it's time for Americans to begin to visit Africa and visit all parts of Africa and learn. As a little boy, I learned geography, I learned history. And before I could even get to college, I have a fair idea or knowledge of different parts of the world. That's what history does to anyone. That's what geography also does to humans. So it's not for learning's sake, but for the fact that somehow you're going to apply it. Look at the world with different lens and see the world from different perspectives. I think Americans need to be reschooled, and that's what IShowSpeed succeeded in achieving. I don't know what they think about his visit, but his visit succeeded in exposing the different cultures, the values, the everything that Africans represent. And it was colorful. I don't know if he's still touring, but I saw beauty of Africa all afresh again. And that alone is education for IShowSpeed and other Americans who don't or haven't heard or know little or next to nothing about Africa. I don't know what you think about this, but I love to read your comment, and I hope to see you on the next one.